Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode here on African Confessions. There is a message that I want to share with you guys, and this message, comes from a WhatsApp voice note that I received, and it is a translation of that WhatsApp voice note. The message reads like this. Hello, my brother, how are you? Can you please post my own story as hidden identity? My brother, I am a man who is living in hell and I am suffering. I do not even know what to do, and I do not know how I can tell my wife because I love my wife a lot. She is like the apple of my eye, but she is living in total darkness. Each and every night when she gets on her knees, my wife, she usually loves to pray around 9 p.m. That is when she prays, and I feel so sorry for her because even in our own house back home in Zim, there are some charms that were given to me by some of my relatives that know the secrets that goes on in our family, and she does not know anything. So no matter how hard she prays, but still God has not yet revealed anything to her. That I have some Tokoloshes that I inherited. These Tokoloshes, I inherited them soon after the passing away of my father's elder brother. As for my father, he died a poor man. He died suffering because he had resisted that idea that they were supposed to use these Tokoloshes so as to make money. These Tokoloshes, they were taken by my grandfather, the man who gave birth to my father. He was the one who took them. When he took them, all that he wanted was to block witches from entering into his compound. That is all that he wanted. I was told that when my grandfather went to take these Tokoloshes, it was after he had suffered a lot because witches, they were always entering into the compound and causing a lot of stress for him. My grandfather, he used to work at the railway station at NRZ, so he was staying in the city. Whilst my grandmother was staying in the village and taking care of the kids. So whenever my grandfather would return back from the city, the witches in the village, they would always bewitch him because they were jealous of him. My father, whenever he would return back, he would have a dozen of bread. And back in those days, like in the 1980s, for you to return back from the city with a dozen of loaves of bread, it was like a very big thing. So this is the reason as to why the witches would bewitch my grandfather. He then returned back to Harare and he went to this other area that is called Chiweshe. When he went there, that was when he was given a small charm that he was supposed to bury in the compound. After my father had been given the charms, he came back to the raw areas and he buried the charms, and he took my grandmother as well as my father and his siblings and he showed them the charm. Late in the evening, they went out and they buried it in the compound, and he told my father and his siblings that forever they were supposed to respect this covenant that was there between him and his entire generation forever, and these charms had to be respected. So the rules were that at his compound, no one was supposed to get out of the cooking area holding a flame. Like back in those days, they didn't have electricity, so usually they would use your paraffin lamps. So the only place that had fire was in the kitchen. So at night, people would go into the kitchen with their paraffin lamps, then they would light their paraffin lamps, returning back to their different spare bedrooms. So this was forbidden. They respected this rule until my grandfather passed away. After my grandfather passed away, that was when I was told that some of the people that didn't properly understand these charms, they didn't respect the rules. So then what happened is that people were just doing whatever they wanted. Then that charm transformed itself and it became a snake. This snake, it was able to give birth to several snakes all by itself. Then the snake transformed itself and it became a Tokoloshe that has been troubling our family ever since that time that it transformed itself. It only troubles those ones that do not want to accept this spirit. But if you accept this spirit, and if you accept it as a God that you can pray to, it can give you great wealth. It is not like great wealth whereby you will be having a lot of wealth, whereby people will see that this one is really rich. You will be able to maintain a lifestyle that is okay. My father was said that he refused to accept these Tokoloshes. His elder brother wanted to give him two of these Tokoloshes, a female and a male, so that they can reproduce and they won't trouble the women that will be born into our family. Unlike other families, like they just have a male or a female Tokoloshe and they will dedicate the children born into that family. But in our family, these Tokoloshes, they go 2 by 2, a male and a female. They give birth, and on their own, all that we have to do is that we have to respect the rules and we have to do whatever that they want from us. As in our family, they do not demand human blood, rather they demand blood that of a cow. So some of my uncles who accepted these Tokoloshes, and then they took them and went to several villages where they were now staying. They always made sure that they kept a lot of cattle. Most of my uncles, they have paddocks where they keep this cattle, so that whenever the Tokoloshes want blood, they just send these Tokoloshes to go and harvest the blood at the plots, and they harvest this blood all by themselves. But my father, he chose to be a poor man, and we suffered a lot when we were growing up. In our family, you suffer alone. There is no one who will be willing to come to your rescue. In our family, you have to make sure that you accept these Tokoloshes so that you can live a comfortable life. But my father, after he had gotten married to my mother, he then chose the Christian way, and when he chose the Christian way, he suffered a lot. After the passing away of my father's brother, it became very close to me, and at that time what I didn't know is that he actually wanted to give me 2 of those Tokoloshes that my own father had refused. And I was told that the reason as to why he wanted to hand these Tokoloshes to me, it was because he didn't have any space anymore for them, because his own Tokoloshes that he had actually reproduced. I was told that my uncle at that time, he had more than 8 Tokoloshes that he had. So he wanted to give me these Tokoloshes that were supposed to be given to my father, but my father, he had refused that inheritance. Well, I didn't know any of that, but all that I knew was that my rich uncle, he loved me a lot. Even when I came here to South Africa, he would always send me a lot of WhatsApp voice messages and would be like, why are you wasting your time there? Please return back home. Even if you want, I can start a small business for you. So finally, after my uncle had passed away, as a family, we made some plans and we got transport. We then returned back to Zim for his funeral. And on his funeral, there was always something funny that was happening. Some of my relatives that knows this family secret, they were always putting me in front. Like when we went to the mortuary to have a final look at his body, I was the one who was made to wear his old suit, but yet my uncle had his own sons. So in our custom, like if you are the firstborn son, when your father has passed away, when you go to the mortuary, they give you like his tie or any of his clothes, and by the time that you will be looking at his body, you must be wearing one of his clothes so that he can know that it is you who is looking at his body. So at that time, when we went to the mortuary, they gave me one of his old suit, the one that he got buried whilst he was wearing. My brother, this is what happened to me. When we returned, I was the one who was sitting in that same car in which his coffin was traveling in. I was sitting with the driver. They gave me so much respect, and I felt so good being respected by people that have their own money. I felt so special. Even when we went to the graveyard, they asked me to say a final word just before we had buried our uncle. After that, we buried our uncle. When it was time for a family meeting. Then after we had a family meeting whereby everyone was there, then one of my aunties, who was my father's brother, who was my father's sister, after that big family meeting, one of my father's sister, she told me that I was supposed to come and visit her in her home there in Grindel. So I later went before me and my wife had returned back to South Africa. When I went there, I found out that some of my rich relatives, they were there as well. Then they were holding this other box. It was just an old box, and they told me that I had to accept these items that were inside that box. So I accepted. I didn't want to humiliate these rich relatives of mine. But when I returned back to the village, that was when I started to have strange dreams, and I felt twice to return back to South Africa. So I spoke again with my auntie, since she had been speaking with me a lot on WhatsApp. She always asked me strange questions like, did you have any dreams last night? Did you dream of anything? So when I had strange dreams, I spoke with my auntie, and I told my auntie that I was always around small kids, but these small kids, they were quite different because they seemed to be old, but at the same time, they were like newborn babies. My auntie then said that she could not drive to the village because she had some businesses to attend to, but I was supposed to get on the next bus to take that would be coming from the village coming to Harare. So I got on the next bus and I went straight to my auntie's place. When I went to my auntie's place, that was when they told me the family history that I just told me. So they said that these Tokoloshes, they are angry. I need to sacrifice something for them before they can make me rich, because they are angry because my father abandoned them throughout his life. They were always coming to him, crying, begging him to accept them, but my father constantly refused them. Now they are angry and they want some blood. But my auntie didn't tell me what type of blood they are going to request. But as for her Tokoloshes, she feeds them with cow's blood. So when I asked her about the type of blood that they need, she said that we need to hold a traditional ceremony, but a secret traditional ceremony where we will pretend as if we are communicating with the ancestors. Then these Tokoloshes, they would pretend as if they are our ancestors. Then they will tell us everything that they are going to require from me. So I returned back to South Africa to work, since I heard that these Tokoloshes, they can't provide anything for me right now until the ceremony will be held. And this ceremony, when it is being held, I have to use my own money. None of my rich relatives that know this secret can help me. Otherwise, the Tokoloshes are not going to speak on that ceremony. I have to use my own money. So 2 cows are needed. In fact, 2 bulls are needed, and some traditional beer has to be brewed. Then I have to place a tombstone on my uncle's grave. My rich relatives said that they can do this, but they cannot do it because this is part of the process. The money has to come out of my own pockets. As for my other relatives, they do not know anything. They do not know these secret meetings that we usually hold. We can even have a conference call on WhatsApp whereby we discuss this matter. As for now, I am struggling to raise the money, and the last time when I tested the waters, when I said to my wife, I think that I need to buy a tombstone and place it on my uncle's grave so that he can bless me, my wife then rebuked me in the name of Jesus Christ and said that, God forbid, I will never allow you to do such a thing. Don't you know that the dead are already dead? They can never bless you. So after testing the waters, I then saw that my wife will never support this thing. I am living through hell, my brother. These Tokoloshes, they usually come and visit me. Usually they come late at night and they wake me up. I can speak with them throughout the night, and when I wake up in the morning, I'll be so tired. And the job that I do, it requires a lot of manual labor. Sometimes the boss will end up squaring at me, because what he doesn't know is that the reason as to why I feel so sleepy when I am at work, it is because these Tokoloshes, I have no control over them. They come and they wake me up and they will keep on asking me the same question over and over again. When are you going to return back home? When are you going to return back home? We are hungry. We are hungry. We tried to go and beg for food at our auntie's place, but we have been chased. When are you going to come back home? Throughout the night, they keep on repeating the same question over and over again, and they are powerless until I would have performed a ritual on my uncle's grave. That is when they will become my own Tokoloshes. As for now, they are still following my uncle's spirit. Brother Nashi, this is where I am right now. I am living in hell on earth. Sometimes when my wife is praying, I just say, God, can you send your angel right now and destroy these Tokoloshes? But at the end of the day, I even question God himself, because if my wife is prayerful as she is, why doesn't she get a revelation so that she can save me? As for me, I'll never attempt to get on my knees and try to beg God to rain down fire so that these Tokoloshes can be destroyed, for they know everything that I am thinking. That is why in my confession, I am not even asking for help, because they know everything that I am planning. Yo, dear listeners, right there was a message that was sent to me by our dear brother as a WhatsApp voice note. Then we had to give you this translation.